Whether you are bringing your first puppy home or are an experienced dog trainer, the basics are still the basics, and it's important to keep these in mind while training your dog. In this video, I'll teach you a proven method to train your dog, so stay tuned to improve your dog training. Hi, my name is Raven, and in this video I'll go over the basic principles of dog training. It is important to keep in mind that everything your dog does is a choice they make. With this in mind, you should focus on teaching your dog to want to make the right decisions. These choices, much like with humans, are driven by motivation. Your dog will be either motivated to do a certain behavior because of the outcome, or he will be motivated to stop doing the behavior because of another outcome. Another option, of course, is that your dog is performing a self-rewarding behavior. This essentially means that your dog enjoys the behavior in itself. Behaviors that are self-rewarding and often frustrating for humans are, for example, digging or chewing on things they aren't allowed to. When training your dog, there are a few actions to motivate your dog to act a certain way. The first and most used option is the lure training. In lure training, you lure your dog into a certain position or behavior by the use of food or a toy. When you use lure training, you essentially have the end in mind and work towards it. Another option is shaping. When shaping a behavior, once again, you have the final version of the exercise in mind. But in contrast to lure training, you do not lure your dog into a position, but you let your dog figure out on his own what he's supposed to do. So you do not guide them into the position or the behavior you want them to perform, but you mark every step into the right direction. When shaping, it's often best to try and fix the environment to set your dog up for success as much as possible. A last method I will mention here, but I'm certainly not a fan of, is to motivate your dog by using fear. When using fear, this essentially means that instead of rewarding the wanted behaviors, you punish your dog for unwanted behaviors until only the wanted behaviors persist. This method has been used a lot throughout history, but it has a ton of negative consequences for both your dog and the bond between you and your dog. If you like this video and want to see more dog training videos, make sure to hit the like and the subscribe button. The first principle of dog training that will make or break your training is timing. After your dog performs a certain behavior, you have but a very short amount of time, about 1 second, to either reinforce the behavior or correct the behavior. This can be done by using a primary reinforcer, being food, a toy, or some affection, or if your dog has already learned the markers, by using a marker. A marker is considered a secondary reinforcer, since it isn't a reward in itself, but it predicts a reward. These positive markers are often words like yes or good boy, or in case you're using clicker training, the click. In order to keep these markers valuable, make sure to reward your dog as often as possible. Otherwise, your dog might stop predicting the primary reinforcer and eventually diminish the wanted behavior. When using these markers, it is important to cue your dog before giving them the primary reinforcer. If in the case of food, for example, you would first give your dog the food and then the secondary reinforcer or the marker, the connection between the marker and the reward isn't made, or at least not as strong. So make sure to mark the behavior and then reward your dog. The time between the marker and the primary reinforcer can be increased as your dog gets the hang of it. It is important though to reward your dog before they lose their focus. Otherwise, they will not make the connection or the association between the marker and the reward. This means that when training puppies, you have but a very short amount of time between the marker and the reward. But as your training progresses, you will be able to up the duration between the marker and the reward. So if you put everything together, you will end up with the cue, the motivation or the lure, the marker, and the reward. First off, you start by giving your dog a cue or a command to let them know what you expect of them. This cue can be both verbal or physical. That choice is entirely up to you. Then comes the part where you need to motivate your dog to act on that command. So you lure them into the right position. Afterwards, you mark the right behavior and then it's followed by the rewards. When training a dog a new behavior, it is important to start without using a command or a cue. Your dog does not yet have an idea what you expect of him after hearing the certain command. So first you'll need to know how to guide your dog into the right behavior. So at first you'll be luring the dog into the behavior, mark it, and reward the behavior. Then once your dog gets the hang of it and you're certain he will perform with the lure, it's time to use the cue to mark the start of the exercise. Once your dog gets the hang of the cue preceding the lure and the behavior, it's time to continue training until your dog is able to perform the behavior with the cue alone. You will find a video over here where I teach you how to phase out treats.